Hello, everybody out there. This is Carrie Albright and the lovely Miss Amanda West Bookwalter coming to you today from Hennepin Marketing and PPC Hero with our latest webinar. The topic today is 8 Advanced Display Network Tactics. So like I said, my name is Carrie Albright and I'm account manager here at Hennepin Marketing. I've been here since last summer and I've had a great time getting to know our team. We've got a really great group that I work with, and so I specialize in a bunch of different areas, including ad testing and a lot that has to do with ads. If you've been on PPC Hero, you'll see that I do write a lot of blog posts about ads, so always tune into that. And then next to me, I've got Miss Amanda West Bookwalter.
Yeah, hi, I'm Amanda West Bookwalter. I'm also account manager here at Hennepin. I've been here for a little over 2 years. I'm also a blogger on PPC Hero. I write a lot about e-commerce stuff and remarketing and display, so I'm excited to talk to you guys about display today.
So like we said, today's topic is 8 advanced display network tactics. So that's going to be different tactics that we here use to keep your display performance at its best. And we're going to talk to you today about things like targeting, conversion volume, display ads, and more.
And you can join the conversation with us today using the hashtag ThinkPPC in your Twitter tweets. And just use the webinar question box to send us questions. So our first poll question is, how long have you been in PPC? So less than 1 year is answer A, 1 to 3 years is answer B, 3 to 5 years is C, and 5+ is D. And like we said in the introductions, I've been here at Hennepin for a little over 2 years. I was doing some e-commerce sales comparison site PPC before that, so all in all about 3 years in being familiar with what PPC is. Anyway, Carrie, how about you?
I've just been here at Hennepin since this past summer, so it's been a really exciting time for me to get into the company and get into PPC, especially when there have been so many changes.
Awesome. Well, it looks like we have some results in from the poll, and it looks like 36% is the most answered for 1 to 3 years, and that's where both Carrie and I fall, really, so that's great to see everybody else is kind of out there with us. 20% 3 to 5 years, 24% 5+ years, and just 20% at less than 1 year. So we're excited to have a good mix here today.
So the next poll question that we've got for you today is, how do you manage your accounts? Your options are, I manage it myself, I'm part of a team that manages it, I outsource my account management, or I'm rethinking how my account is managed. So feel free to go on and let us know sort of where you rank on things. Around here, we interact with a lot of different people. We go to a lot of different conferences. Obviously, HeroConf is a big deal for us, but we also like to talk to different people in the industry and find out really who's participating in PPC and on what level. Well, we can see from our results here that we've got a slight majority of people who are part of the team that manage their PPC accounts, and then a lot of you actually manage your own, so that's great. I think that that we actually encounter that a lot, where people are just doing it in-house and they start to realize that PPC is something they want to invest some time and effort into, and so that's something they kind of start building out.
So I'll get us started with our 8 tactics, and tactic number 1 is some creative remarketing lists, custom combinations, and creative analytics targeting. So I'll just get into the first one here that I wanted to talk about. So there's a lot of really cool things that you can do with custom combinations and remarketing. And I like to get really creative and get it specific to what my goals are for an account. So I have one account that deals in as a subscription service, and it's a 30-day subscription service, and you can buy 30 days at a time, and a lot of people choose to do that. So what I did is set up a custom combination to target people who are 30 days from their conversion, and then for the next 60 days I'll retarget them. So it's been 30 days since they converted, so it's likely that they didn't renew, since most people don't have an automatic renewal. They just do it on a month-to-month basis, and this is just going to remind them for the next 60 days to renew their subscription. And this is actually the results from that. You can see it's a really low volume, only 87 clicks for this time period, but the conversion rate is really, really great, and the cost per conversion is really good for the account. And so that's why the sloth here is sitting there. He's pretty pleased. He's not super ecstatic. He's not going to give us a full smile, but he's got the knowing half smile of someone who's done a good job. So I think that's the most important thing there. And then this is just another cool thing that you can do in analytics. So now we have the option of doing remarketing for AdWords or remarketing for analytics. You can even do both. And analytics gives you a lot of really cool tools. One thing that you can do is get really creative in the way you're targeting people. So basically anything that you can measure in analytics really or track, you can target by. And so one really cool thing that we have done here for analytics for marketing is we have a product that is really targeted at the older generation, people who are 65 plus. And what we did is targeted people for marketing that have a screen resolution that's a lot higher, and they use Internet Explorer, because we found that mostly older people use these tools, have a higher screen resolution so they can read it, and then use Internet Explorer because it's kind of the default browser for a lot of PCs. So we found that, obviously we analyzed the data first and found that these particular audiences have good conversion rates and they were of high value to us, so that's what we did. Tactic number 2 is measuring your display conversions for volume impact. And so basically what I'm talking about here is that when you're looking at display ads, it's really easy to get caught up in click-through rate or conversion rate separately, kind of like we do for text ads for just regular search. But when you're using display, it's really important to consider the volume that you're getting. So I just kind of like split up image and text ads for 3 different accounts and did an analysis here. And I use this metric called conversions per 100,000 impressions. So basically you can see I have the formula here. You just take 100,000 times the CTR, and then take the result of that times the conversion rate, and you'll get the number of conversions that you would get if you were to receive 100,000 impressions. So you can see that even though the conversion rate is lower for text, that the sum of conversions per 100,000 impressions is going to be higher for image because the click-through rate is so much higher. And so that really just kind of goes with the theory of display anyway. People are out on the internet most of the time not looking for the product or service that you're trying to market to them. And so for them to really take notice, you have to have creative images and animated images or dynamic images that they're really interacting with. So they're more likely to click on it, and that increases click-through rate, and then that will therefore increase the sum of conversions per 100,000 impressions. So I'm not saying the text isn't important, because you can see that they're normally a lower cost per conversion, but at a much lower volume because the click-through rate's a lot lower, and for most of them the impressions are a lot lower because it's harder to get those out in the world. There's more spots for images on websites and the display network. So you can see the results there, and I just think it's important to measure the volume impact in addition to the metrics like click-through rate or conversion rate.
I think that's a really good point, especially bringing up the conversions per 100,000 impressions. That's definitely something that we talk about around here a lot as just another way of looking at it and not just constantly going with the traditional conversion rate. So I think that's good thinking, Amanda. Nicely done.
Thanks, Carrie. So tactic number 3 is dynamic remarketing. So dynamic remarketing should increase your click-through rate and conversion rate, and it's really great for e-commerce products. So basically, for those of you who maybe don't know what I'm talking about, it basically takes the last thing that you looked at and uses that in the ad. So it could have like a static ad copy, like if you see the shoes here, it's giving you a deal, save 20% on 2 pairs of boots for women. And so maybe the dynamic part is the picture of the boot that you looked at last while you were on the website. And then for the car, they could be showing you the car that you just looked at and letting you mouse over to similar options if you wanted to, but showing you, first of all, the one that you just looked at. So there should be a degree of familiarity there. When you see the ad, you recognize that it's a product that you were at least interested enough to glance at on the website. So that should increase click-through rate. And what it also does, kind of like when you do branded remarketing, if they are familiar with it and are interested, they're more likely to not click, which will save you money if you're paying by cost per click. So an advanced option to do with dynamic remarketing is if you're doing AdWords remarketing, dynamic remarketing, which I believe could still be in beta. It might not still be in beta. I'm not sure. It's hard to keep up with when things get actually released out of beta. You can pair with contextual keywords or topics, and that will target the website. So if you are trying to target people with your dynamic remarketing, you can also target them while they're still in research or shopping mode. So for instance, if we were doing the boots here, maybe I would pick a topic to pair with my dynamic remarketing of shoes and boots. Or if I was using contextual keywords, maybe I would create a keyword list of shopping about shopping for boots. So buy boots, cheap boots, brand name boots. And so that way you're targeting people on websites while they're still shopping with the dynamic ad. And there are also third-party services like Fetchback or Retargeter. If you can't get into the AdWords beta, I'm pretty sure that there is a spend requirement if it's still in beta, and you do have to have your Google Merchants feed up to date. So if you're doing product listing ads, this will be a really easy thing for you to transition to in Google AdWords, but otherwise check out Fetchback or Retargeter. And tactic number 4 that I wanted to talk to you guys about, I don't have a lot of examples or data to run through with this, but just as a general rule of thumb, I wanted to kind of go over a theory for just using display for direct response. So it gets really difficult to think that you need to have a really tight return on ad spend margin on display if you're e-commerce, and it probably gets pretty scary to think of even trying display. But if you think of it as a way to fill the top of your sales funnel, it can be really profitable for you. So if you think of it as a way to drive emails or email newsletter signups, then you can really start to target them in other ways, like with email newsletters or specials. If you have a deal running on, you could email people about if you collect their email through a short lead form through Display Network. You can also use Facebook custom audiences. So what that does is lets you upload a list of pieces of information about your customers, like their email addresses, and then it'll target them on Facebook specifically. So if you drive a display campaign that is just collecting short information, like so maybe an email address and a name, then you can really start to fill the top of the funnel of your sales funnel. And so if you're really trying to drive volume and even drive brand awareness, that's a really great way to start, even if you are e-commerce and you're trying to measure your account on return on ad spend. So we have one more live poll question here before we turn it back over to Carrie. And we wanted to know, what is your go-to type of display campaign, assuming that you could only pick one, so I guess your favorite? A would be interest categories, B is topics, C is contextual keywords, and D is managed placements.
Amanda, what do you think is going to be the front runner in the results of this poll here?
I'm torn between trying to decide what people are going to say. They're either going to say contextual keywords or managed placements, because those are the safe bets.
Or interest categories or topics.
Yeah.
It could be any.
It definitely could be.
Four.
But I really feel like I've seen best results with contextual keywords, but a lot of people love managed placements. And it looks like the results are in, and I was right. 53% of you said contextual keywords.
Oh, nice.
So I'm glad that you all agree with me. And then 30% was the second one, which was managed placements. So I really just had this from the beginning.
How did you know that?
I'm just smart, Carrie.
I think so.
Topics had 10%. On interest categories had 7%. How cute.
Hanging in there, interest categories. Way to go.
So now I'll turn it over to Carrie to go over some of her amazing tactics for Display Network.
Awesome. Thank you, Amanda. Thanks for sharing your tips, by the way. Those are really helpful.
No problem.
All right, so I decided to cover some stuff. I really like to use the tools, or at least investigate what Google's providing us with as far as our display toolbox. So some of you may have seen or heard the video blog that I did a while back about the keyword planner, which is basically just a way for Google to incorporate the keyword tool and the traffic estimator and things like that, and kind of see what you can expect if you were to pursue certain keywords and things like that. So the display planner, it's pretty much a really similar way of doing that, except for the display network. So here we've got sort of what the interface layout looks like. And what you can do is actually go in and put in either keywords that you're hoping to include, contextual keywords. You can put in your landing page for suggestions, and then at the bottom there, it prompts different ideas for ad groupings, groupings, and also individual targeting ideas. So like all the planning tools that it has, it tries to give you an idea of who it is that you're going to be targeting, or who it is that's going to be receiving the traffic that you're trying to send their way. So here are a couple of the different results broken out, and what you can see is that we've got results for some of the different contextual keywords. We've got some results for placements, which is kind of cool that it actually gives you sort of suggested estimates for what's going to be happening if you were to target these areas, and then also individual targeting for video targeting, which is pretty cool. So I'm all about trying to get information on what's happening, what they're expecting, and then trying putting it into play and see if it actually turns out that way.
And for those of you that were a little more old school PPC people, like we saw in the beginning, some of you had some 5+ years. If you haven't checked this out recently, because they just did a lot of updates to the way that this function and the way the interface looks not that long ago, you should check it out for sure. I know that I was slacking for a couple of months on not checking this out and was really surprised when I saw how cool it's gotten. So definitely check it out if it's been a while for you.
Yeah. And I've said this before, that I feel like with all of the excitement and fear that's come with the enhanced campaign migration, I think that Google's really trying hard to give us tools that gives us more information, more insights, because I know that a lot of us really just want to make sure we don't lose control of what we're doing and what we're seeing and the different setups that we use. I think that the display planner is one of the examples where it's like, okay, we're going to give you as much information as we can. We know you guys are a little nervous about the enhanced transition and all that stuff, so I think it's kind of one of their little ways to concede the demands that we've got.
For sure.
Speaking of kind of knowing what you're going to be working with, who you're going to be appealing to, what kind of traffic you're looking at, another tool that I really like is the display benchmark tool. So this is something, it's a free tool that was brought out to us by DoubleClick, and it's actually a really cool way of looking at what is happening with various industries, various ad formats, which is actually a really cool option to look into the different rich media that you've got going on in your accounts, different ad sizes, and different locations. So what we can see from that is that with locations, I assume that Google is continuing to tweak this. I know that they probably get really excited about the tools they make, so they just put it together, come up with the best ideas they've got, and then give it to us, at which point we turn around and say, okay, locations, it's only like 13 countries, and that's as much as we can target it down. That's not as great, but it really is nice to be able to look at things, and things like ad size, and being able to actually see what is happening out there, what your competitors are doing, and see what is happening with trends in the industries. I think a while back we talked about just Google trend data and being able to look at things and say, okay, what's happening with people looking into different fields? If people are looking into the topic of puppies more and more and more, which is understandable, they're adorable, then that's something that if I'm trying to sell puppy outfits, that I really want to make sure that I am on that cusp of getting my ads out there, getting them ranked as high as possible, and really getting some traffic back to my clients. So this is a great way to do it for the display network too, because they really have a lot of insights as to how people are responding to what's coming through on that end.
So I know that there's a couple of you out there who had less than a year of experience, and so for those people, where would they find the display benchmark tool?
Oh, well, you know what? I had the link for the, if you go through DoubleClick Media, they actually will walk you through kind of how you use the tool, and you can, if you're signed into your client's account and you open that, then that will actually open into your interface as well.
Awesome.
All right, so another tactic has to do with multi-layering targeting within your display campaigns. So in the past, we know that if you do different kinds of multi-layers, that Google's tried its best to sort of prioritize what it thinks is going to work best. It's had sort of a hierarchy of sorts of what is going to sort of trump the other targeting methods that you have. So if you've got managed placements versus topics versus keywords, it's going to say, okay, I think somebody who is looking at the site you're targeting is going to be a more valuable user to you than somebody who maybe is just paired up randomly with one of your contextual keywords. So what they've done now is seeing as how we all responded so well to the bid modifiers and how excited we were about the different device modifications and things like that that we could do, they said, okay, we're going to do this in the display network too. So what they've allowed us to do is actually continue to set up your account with the different kinds of targeting that you want. Like, let's say, I think in this example, we've got topics, for example, where you set this up and you would establish it as a custom bid where you can say, this is what I want to target, and this is going to be where I start off my different targeting. And then what you'll be able to do is actually go in to your other settings and say, okay, yes, I want to do topics. That's going to just be the main, the jumping off point for my display targeting. But I also want to include perhaps a contextual keyword. So then what I would do is go into my keywords and actually opt into the bidding options I have there and say, okay, the keywords are good, but I do want to bid those down just a little bit. I want them to be part of my targeting, but I don't want them to have as much weight, or I want them to have more weight perhaps than other aspects of it. So that's a really helpful tool when it comes to balancing how you're doing your targeting. And they really are, like I said before, they're really giving us a chance to take the ball into our own court and say, okay, this is how I want to do it, and this is exactly the priority I'm putting onto these different aspects of targeting.
Yeah, and for any of you old school PPC managers, again, I like to keep bringing this up for you guys since I'm only not anywhere near 5 years. Some of you guys are 5 years plus. You guys might remember that these used to be called a broad reach and specific reach for display, and they used to be at the campaign level only. And so now, with all of the enhanced campaign changes and all the cool stuff that Google's trying to give us to make us feel better about it, this is another really cool thing that they're giving us, more segmentation and better control.
Yeah, at the ad group level too, which is really nice.
Yeah.
So yeah, so this is kind of how it would look if you actually opt into that. It'll come up and give you a chance, and it looks, it looks just like it does when you're doing this in Search Network for like location targeting, things like that. It lets you and device targeting where you can actually go in and change what you want your bid to be. And also, I'm a huge proponent of the AdWords editor. I really like being able to operate in sort of that in that system, and so it's really, really easy to do it there too. In fact, it's equally as easy as doing it in the interface. And you also, if you're kind of new to how you want to do this, or you're just going to be a little slower in how you implement it, the editor is a really great way to do it, because it's up to you when you want to upload it versus just doing it straight in the interface and hoping that you get it right on the first time you put it in. And lastly, my tactic of choice is the display ad builder. And it is never too late to learn the display ad builder. It's a feature that is offered through the AdWords interface that I think is fantastic. And I think it's really great for people who know that they need more display ads or want to experiment with display ads, with image ads, but don't necessarily have a lot in their pocket already. So you can go in, it's a really simple system. It really walks you through how to build it, what different options you have for the setup, for what the structure of the ad is, logos, images, all sorts of stuff. So there are a lot of different options. And they even have a feature where they sort of do a suggested ad, and it actually pops up material from your website, and it says, okay, these are images we found on your website, this is language you have in your current text, or your current ad text, and puts it all into one ad for you. So you can say, okay, this is kind of what I'm thinking, yeah. That's also really helpful because if you've got a client whose ads aren't necessarily all the different dimensions you're able to do, or maybe they don't want to take the time to do it, it's a great way to really expand what kind of ads you've got. And that way, when you're looking back at your benchmark tool and saying, okay, these are the ad sizes that people respond to and things like that, here comes the display ad builder to solve all your problems. So my helpful tip regarding ads, like I said, I'm kind of ad loco around here, but one of the most helpful tips that I can think of are, once you've created your ad, to actually highlight that ad and go into the edit button where you'll see copy to, and that is a super easy peasy way for you to select campaigns and ad groups where you want to copy over the ad that you've just created. So you don't have to go, you don't necessarily have to go into the editor. You can actually just right there, copy it, and send it over to whatever other ad groups or campaigns you want. And obviously you want to make sure that your destination URLs are exactly how you want them for those copied ads. But it's a really good shortcut that I strongly suggest you take advantage of. And there's a happy puppy there. It's so happy. It was so simple for me to make those ads and me to just switch it over.
He thought it was a real helpful tip.
I know. He's feeling good about it.
Okay, so it is live question and answer time. You guys have sent us some questions, and we are super excited to answer them for you.
Ooh, so the first question I'm going to give to Amanda, just because I know that you are pretty familiar with this. But our first question is, what is the best display technique for ROI? And maybe explain what that is for our new folks.
Yeah, so ROI is return on investment. This is something that you use to measure just sort of a really quick way of taking revenue divided by cost. That would give you your return on ad spend or your return on investment, depending on how, if you are using back-end cost and revenue data, or if you're just taking revenue from analytics and dividing it by AdWords cost. It just depends on how you're measuring it. But either way, you want to know how much money you're getting for the money that you're putting in. So basically, I would always say if you haven't started any display, to start with remarketing. That's going to be your most qualified audience and your best bet for a high ROI. And I would say if you are e-commerce, you want to start with people who have abandoned their shopping carts and haven't completed a transaction. So that's one of those custom combinations. I would say that that's definitely the place to start. And then from there, kind of as the poll indicated, contextual keywords are the best. After retargeting, they tend to get better returns than what I've seen for any interest or topic campaigns. So if you're actually looking for a return, I would start with retargeting and then move to contextual and really try and target people while they're in the research or buying mode. That's the key to display for ROI or ROAS measurement, is you want to try and get people while they're still in the searching mode on the display network, which can be kind of tricky. So retargeting is the best place to start. And hopefully I answered that well enough. If not, feel free to get back to us. But I will ask Carrie one of these questions. Carrie, how do you feel about automatic placements? What point would you suggest blocking a placement, or do you suggest doing that at all?
Placements are so tricky. I feel like we're always so tempted to take any placement that's performing really well and stick it into a managed placement, and if it's performing really badly, and immediately cut it off. So it's really tempting to make those big cuts. I think in my experience, though, it really has to do with making sure that I understand what the implications are for volume, as far as like making sure that this is a placement that I'm comfortable having ads show, and really seeing, is this something that I'm actually investing a lot of my ad space in? I would say I approach it kind of the same way that I do with some types of negative keywords, where if I start to see that I'm actually spending more money on these particular URLs and they're really just not converting, they're not bringing the numbers that I need them to, if there's just no positive return on it in that way, then at that point I say, okay, let's go ahead and pull this out for a while. And then when you look at what change in volume you have after that, it can kind of let you know if that made a major dent, if that's something you might want to revisit.
For sure. And I would also say, when you're, just to add to that, when you're going through your placements, make sure you really pay attention to the targeting that's going on in whatever campaign you're looking at the placements for. Because remember that audience targeting, so remarketing or interest category marketing, is really targeting the person. And so it shouldn't really matter what website they're on, as long as it's a legitimate website. There are a lot of websites out there just trying to drive clicks with like download buttons and stuff. But otherwise, you should really look at placements with topics and contextual targeting, because those are targeting the website and they should be really relevant. So be careful what you're targeting when you're looking at those.
Yep, that's a really good point about the remarketing, just because it really is the person that you're following, not necessarily some random website that you happen to appear on multiple times. Well, let's have another question for Amanda. How about, there's one question we've got about custom combinations, and that's something you talked about just a little bit. Along the lines that we've been discussing today, which would you say are custom combinations that are the best ones to start with, if you're thinking you're going to give it a shot and try doing a custom combination?
So I talked about already, the very first place to start for e-commerce is people who have visited the checkout, but they didn't complete a checkout, because those are people who are interested enough in an item to add it, but for some reason lost their way and didn't actually purchase. And I would also add to that, if you have any kind of like default coupon that you provide people for any reason, go ahead and put that in the ad. That could help them convert if they see that they get a percentage off when they come back. But if we're just talking other than that, or for lead generation, obviously it depends on the amount of traffic that you get to your website. If you have a really high volume website, you don't want to remarket to people who have just visited the homepage, and then that's it. That's going to be a lot of people for you to target. So you want to try and come up with a custom combination that's going to be a little more honed than that. So if you think people who have visited the homepage, and then if you want to get into analytics remarketing, you can come up with a custom combination that's really interesting. Like they visited the homepage and they visited more than 5 pages in their visit, and they spent more than 20 minutes on the website. So you can add these kind of interaction metric qualifiers for custom combinations that really drive the quality of the traffic you're remarketing. And that's really the key. You want to drive the quality of the traffic that you're remarketing. And let's see, another question for Carrie. In your opinion, Carrie, are view-through conversions an important metric to watch or measure when running remarketing campaigns?
Ooh, that's a good question. I would say that, in my opinion, I think that view-through conversions are worthwhile as far as looking at and being aware of kind of what impact your ads are having just across the boards. As far as remarketing goes, I think that it's something that knowing that this is somebody who, for whatever reason, we're choosing to come back and really try and get their business, knowing that we're coming back to them and that they've seen our ads before, I think it's worthwhile to keep that in your pocket as far as what you're considering having an impact on them. But it's also something that you would expect to have view-through conversions with remarketing audiences, just because you are continually attempting to have that interaction with them. So I would say that that's something that I would absolutely keep sort of a finger on the pulse of your view-through conversions, but whether or not I necessarily use it as my metric of choice or something that's going to determine if I think my campaign's effective, I would say I don't put as much stock in that.
Yeah, I would caution to be very careful with third-party remarketing services. They really like to give a lot of attribution to view-through conversions and actually charge you money for them, and that can be very scary. So please be very careful. I hear a lot of horror stories out there for that. I would say in general, if you have a high converting remarketing campaign, I wouldn't pay much attention to them. Maybe if you're on the line about cutting something or bidding higher on something, I would look at them. If you have a really low volume remarketing campaign or a low volume traffic website in general, I would probably try and think of an attribution to assign to view-through conversions, maybe 25% or something like that. I really wouldn't go very high with it, especially like Carrie said, for marketing, these are people who are already interacting with your website. So it's not like we're introducing them to the brand, so we should take a lot of credit for it. So just be careful with attribution with view-through conversions.
Amanda, I feel like attribution is something I've heard you talk about before. Do you have like blog posts or like anything that you've done in the past about attribution modeling, or maybe tools that we have to do that?
I do. I have a video blog, and it's about attribution modeling, and it has lots of puppies in it. So if you are interested in both attribution modeling and puppy photos, I suggest you go look that up.
Excellent. That sounds good. Let's see if I can get another question for Amanda. Well, I have one that has to do with, let's see, impression caps and length of a display. So our question is, do you have recommendations for remarketing impression caps and length of display?
Yeah, so there's a way to measure kind of how that's working for you, and I would suggest you measure it before you cap anything. I like to leave my stuff uncapped before I can get a good measure on it. So you just go through the search frequency for that. So just kind of go through your frequency and capping and see where interaction metrics start to drop off with your frequency, and then try testing some capping there. I will say that I've heard lots of stories about people getting creeped out by being followed constantly all over the internet. I know one that's notorious for me is Jimmy John's. They love to follow me all over the internet, even after I just ordered a sandwich. So just be careful. But I've heard lots of people say that they got completely turned off by a brand because they felt like they were being stalked. So definitely be careful of that. And we've had clients here at Hannafin that have said, hey, you know, I see us everywhere. Can we calm it down a little bit? So definitely for the sake of your brand and your client's brand, just think about how often you're showing people, and definitely measure, and then test, and then measure again.
And there's definitely a difference between brand awareness and creeping people out because you're just, that you have no cap on. So there's a fine line there for sure.
Yep. So Carrie, how do you feel after deciding to do a display campaign? What do you think the best way to determine what to do next is?
Well, I mean, I think that the obvious answer is that remarketing is a great place to start just because there's a lot more understanding of who it is that you're going to be appealing to and things like that. But let's say that that's not the obvious answer. Let's say that we're trying to think outside the box and say, okay, I have all these options for different kinds of targeting with topics and interest categories and things like, age and gender and all sorts of stuff that I can actually whittle all that stuff down. I would say that that's where I really like to turn to some of the different tools I was talking about and looking at what some of the different trends are, what some of the different data is saying as far as how I can really hone in who I'm trying to target. So looking at it and saying, okay, am I interested in finding individuals that are seeking out this particular service? Am I looking for people who have these kinds of habits? Am I looking for sites where I want to actually make sure that whatever they're looking at, my ad is right there ready to answer their questions? So I think just depending on what you're really trying to connect with that user, it can kind of depend, but I know that that in looking at different kinds of placements, that's a really surefire way. Instead of doing just like topics, it's a surefire way of actually like locking into saying, okay, this is a great example of what I'm talking about when I want my ad to be on the site. Here's what I'm looking for. So that's kind of how I approach it. How about you? Any go-tos?
I think you covered it. I think you did a great job.
Well, I'm so motivated. I always talk about puppies and that picture and that sloth. They're so cute. I'm just feeling this right now. So Amanda, what would you say if somebody is saying that they want to do display stuff, they are super intrigued by the conversation we've had today and all the blog posts we've had in the past and just this concept of advertising on display network, how do you recommend somebody talks to either their boss or their client about actually taking that jump?
So I think you have to figure out what goal you're trying to meet is. So for your website, are you trying to get more volume to your website? Are you trying to sell more goods? Are you trying to fill the top of your sales funnel? So I think you have to identify what that is and how the display network can help you do that. So there's lots of different ways. I think that we cover a lot of them today, and we cover a lot of them on our blog. So for instance, is talking about sales. One of my tactics that I talked about is collecting email addresses and then using that to build out your email subscription list and email them coupons, and maybe build out a Facebook campaign with Facebook custom audiences. So that's one way you could try that if your goal is to sell more items. If you're trying to get more traffic to your website, but when your boss or your client is really worried about it being quality traffic, then really talk about remarketing, talk about doing some contextual keywords. So you just want to take whatever goal you're trying to meet, come up with a plan to get there. Use data that's out on the internet. We have lots of data on our website when we talk about suggestions for ideas and how it worked for us and what we found. So use data that you find and say, look, it worked for these people and this is what I'd like to do, this is how I'd like to try it. Use all the cool tools that Carrie showed, go through all the tools and show them, like, look, this is how it could work for us. Give as much prediction as you can, take as much doubt out of it as you can, and show them exactly how you're going to get from our problem to solving that problem with the display network.
Yeah, and I think that that's like one of the really cool things about doing PPC is that it combines that sort of creative problem-solving side with all the data that is going to help support those decisions. So you don't just have to come into a room and pitch this great idea. You can actually pull up these different figures and say, here's what we're seeing, here are the numbers that we're looking at, and this is why I feel justified in pursuing display.
For sure. Carrie, here's a really good question that someone asked. Flexible reach allows you to combine multiple targeting methods together. Which combinations would you recommend in descending order of importance? This is a great question.
Oh my gosh. This is a good question. Whoever came up with this. I would say, okay. Amanda, how about you start us off with this? You're kind of the senior here in this conversation. How about we get you rolling on it?
I feel like, so I kind of talked earlier about putting remarketing with a contextual or a topic targeting, and I think that's a really strong place to start. Remarketing already qualifies the people by making them people who are aware of your brand and are interested enough in your brand to interact with you again. So I think that's really strong. And then I think pairing that with topic or contextual is really strong because that's targeting the type of website then. I would also say interest categories can be really interesting to layer with remarketing. So I think that remarketing is really a win no matter what you layer it with, and so it's really interesting to think about. I would definitely say be careful if you're layering things that are a little broader. So like for instance, if you were to layer like topic or interests together, that would probably be down towards the bottom of my list. Do you have any ideas yet, Carrie?
Well, I think that one of the different kinds of targeting that is a really tricky one, but I think can be effective if you sort of give it some loose reins, is when you actually do take advantage of the demographic data and saying, you know, there's age and gender assumptions that Google makes about people. And on some of the accounts that I work on, we really are trying to target sort of the demographic between about 18 and 30, or actually 18 and 25 or so, but we'll keep it a little bit broader than that, and really saying, okay, this is what we know is going to really drive down exactly who we're appealing to, and then add some of those other broad targeting strategies like topics or you know, interest categories and things like that, to sort of create that Venn diagram that has the overlap of several big categories that kind of starts whittling it down.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I would say that just thinking of ways to qualify your audience is going to be the best place for you to start.
Yeah, I think that honestly, like most clients that we talk to really are interested in the quality of, especially in lead generation, the quality of the leads that they're bringing in, because as much fun as it is to remarket to people all day long who've been to your site, it actually makes more sense if you're going to be just saving your time, your energy, your money, your, you know, the hours on the clock that you're spending on people that we actually think at the end of the day really are going to convert. So quality definitely makes quite a bit of sense. Let's see. So Amanda, what do you know about YouTube and remarketing pixels?
So this is a really good question. I've done remarketing within YouTube before, and I know that that is a thing that you can do, and I didn't see a lot of success with it, and I know that the last few times I've talked to my Google rep, she's been really pushing me on trying it out again. So I'm not sure if that means that there is a new caveat to it that wasn't around the last time I did it. There may be. As far as replacing a remarketing pixel on your YouTube channel, so if you're talking about taking the remarketing pixel from that created in AdWords or in Analytics, I'm not sure that you can do that. I've never done that. In theory, it sounds like it possibly could work if you can place pixels on your YouTube channel. I don't know why it wouldn't work. It might be confusing since we've switched to the remarketing pixel that's supposed to be for your entire website, if you have one on your website and your YouTube channel. So definitely get with your Google rep about that. But that's a really good thought, and it's good to bring up YouTube as a remarketing tool, because it can be a really effective remarketing tool if you do it correctly. For me, I was doing it based on a client's goals of having direct return on ad spend measurement, which is not a good goal to have when you're doing YouTube remarketing. So what you want to think about is how much traffic you drive with YouTube and how quality that traffic is. So if you have videos that are just supposed to be like shocker silly videos and they're not necessarily sales videos, they're not necessarily bringing in quality traffic, then you're going to have a lot of that kind of traffic that you're remarketing to, and it might not be very effective for you. But if you have, for instance, if you're a B2B company, and so you know that everybody who visits your YouTube channel is a prospect for a B2B sale, then that'd be a really good place to start some remarketing.
Cool.
So this is the very last question that we have time for, and I'm going to ask Carrie, what do you think of the combination of topic and keyword targeting? You have to kind of follow up from our last question.
All right. I would say with topic and keyword targeting, I mean, honestly, I think that for me, combining those two seems like sort of not taking advantage of the other kinds of targeting that you can do, just because topic, you're already kind of pushing for a general type of website you're going for. The contextual keywords are going to make it so it kind of narrows that down even more. So, I mean, really, if you're kind of thinking that you might want to try, you know, manage placements or something like that, that maybe that actually could help whittle down what different sites are effective sites for you to impress on. So that could be something if you want to do it as a strategy and really figuring out what are the sites that are most effective for you. But as far as all the different combination options you have, I would say that doing that, it seems like it would be fine, but I think there are other combinations that I think might be a better way for you to really reach out into the user universe and identify who your best traffic is.
Yeah, the only thing that I would say that I could think of a time where that would be a good strategy is if you are targeting something very specific. So if you are, let's say, for instance, you sold iPhones and you were targeting a website that reviewed cell phones, and you could have that as a topic, cell phones, and then you could use a keyword list for iPhones. So if you wanted to target specific pages within a website that you could pick the topic for, that would be a good strategy. But that is a pretty narrow focus.
Good call. Good answers, Amanda.
Good answers,
Impressive
Carrie.
stuff. Awesome.
All
well,
right.
Now is the chance for us to impart any help that we can onto you. So if you would like to help with your PPC accounts or PPC management, we'd love for you to answer this poll. You are interested in either A, PPC management, in that we handle the day-to-day management of your PPC account, B, an account audit, so we review your account for optimizations, C, a PPC retainer, and that's where we handle only specific needs within your account, or D, a free solutions blueprint. We look at your account and provide analysis and consultation. So this is for accounts that have $20,000 a month spend.
And I have done a couple of those solutions blueprints and a couple of those account audits, and I always love getting into people's accounts and finding new data to dig in, and I just love it. It's very exciting. We're just bouncing ideas off of each other and essentially PPC nerding out for a while. It's really fun.
There's nothing wrong with PPC or with nerds. When they come together, I mean, really, that's a match made in heaven.
Yeah, so it would be really cool to see if any of you are interested in talking to us about any of this. And if you have more questions, you can just let us know at marketing@hannafinmarketing.com. And then, like we mentioned, the free solutions blueprint from Hannafin Marketing, just click on that link and you can get all signed up for that. And then don't forget to use #ThinkPPC for any shout outs that you'd like to do in regards to our webinars.
Excellent. Well, I assume that as things come along with Google and kind of them developing more and more tools and more reports, because that like they're constantly coming up with new reports and new information for us to use, I assume that these webinars are going to keep coming and all these blog posts will just keep filling up. So keep in touch with us because I know that we're going to be on top of it.
Yeah, and if any of you have any ideas of what you'd really like to hear as far as a webinar topic, just use #ThinkPPC and let us know. And don't forget to read ppchero.com, where Carrie and I are featured authors. And that is it for now, guys. Thanks so much for